Let's take a brief look at each of these. Single parenthood was fairly common prior to the 20th century due to the more frequent deaths of spouses, but at that time, there was a certain stigma surrounding being a single parent. Today, single parenthood is considered more acceptable. One-parent families may still result from the death of a significant other, but now also come about through circumstances, including a parent's choice or divorce. To the core of the society, exactly what is being produced at that moment, how people are thinking of themselves and how individuals are relating to the social structure at that time. Art is the vehicle through which we understand that. Were you to take away art, what would be that mirror? How would we see what we are about? How would we understand what was going on in Paris? There are these rules and we all have to abide by just these rules. But there are lots of things about football that aren't rules specified. So Brazilian football is different from Italian football, from British football, from German football, from Spanish football. It's culturally specific, but acknowledges that there are these universal general rules to apply to everybody. The first thing you notice about the motion is that it repeats itself. The cork traces the same path over and over again, up and down, up and down. This repetitive or periodic motion is characteristic of waves. Then you notice something else. Using a stopwatch, you measure the time it takes for the piece of cork to go over its highest position down to its lowest and then back up again. By their revised estimates, these restored ecosystems could capture anywhere from 100 to 200 billion tons of carbon, accounting for over one-sixth of humanity's carbon emissions. More than half of the potential forest canopy for new restoration efforts can be found in just 6 countries. Like many animals, fish stick together in groups, but that's not just because they enjoy each other's company, it's a matter of survival. Schools of fish exhibit complex swarming behaviors that help them evade hungry predators, while a lone fish is quickly singled out as easy prey. So, which brilliant fish leader is the one in charge? The learning zone is when our goal is to improve. Then we do activities designed for improvement, concentrating on what we haven't mastered yet, which means we have to expect to make mistakes, knowing that we will learn from them. That is very different from what we do when we're in our performance zone, which is when our goal is to do something as best as we can to execute. It is so important to our audience. It is so important how people perceive the library. So, that was quite an important message in our research. And indeed the smell is an important way of how we communicate with the environment. This piece of research was done by an advertising company because advertisers are so interested in how we interact with each other and the environment. In developing the screen and working with kids in the schools and in the classrooms, it's really helped us make the Scoob something that's usable by the children themselves. They've informed us massively on how it needs to work, and they've given their opinions on colors and designs, and just the feedback they've given to us has been just marvelous. The main difference between now and the 1950s is that you can't see it, it's invisible. Also, the main source of pollution now is from cars and lorries, and although these don't produce visible signs, this air pollution is still a significant risk to health. And one of the key factors in the rise of this type of pollution is that we have all become much more vehicle dependent. Households that cannot pay for energy are unable to power electronic, learning, or medical devices, keep perishable, healthy food in the refrigerator, or maintain safe body temperatures under conditions of extreme heat or cold. People can suffer from mental and physical health consequences, including the possibility of death. These are valuable people made in the image of God who are physically suffering. Many of them go without a personal relationship with Christ. So, we do this with a week of hands-on training, consisting of a variety of topics like basic sanitation and hygiene, taking vital signs, wound care and infection prevention, basic birth assisting and emergency skills. how people are thinking of themselves and how individuals are relating to the social structure. At that time, art is the vehicle through which we understand that. Were you to take away art, what would be that mirror? How would we see what we are about? How would we understand what was going on in Paris at the time of the Impressionists, when people were learning to see in a completely different way? The tropical areas on Earth are dry and hot, and are originally not suitable for food production. The change of the climate leads to extreme weather conditions such as flood and hurricane, which exacerbates the food production. As a result, it leads to a continuous decline in food supply annually around 10 to 17%. That question is not as simple as it may sound. You might think that space appears dark at night because that is when our side of Earth faces away from the sun as our planet rotates on its axis every 24 hours. But what about all those other faraway suns that appear as stars in the night sky? The brain thinks the merger is also a place of experience, memory, feeling, and thinking ability to give birth to ideas and actions. Nerve myelination of the brain take place in sequence, starting from the primitive brain, the limbic brains, and brain thought. Neural pathways are more frequently used to make more myelin thicken. If a child is emotionally kind of put together and socially competent, that will affect more positive and productive learning. And if a child is preoccupied with fears or anxiety or is dealing with considerable stress, no matter how intellectually gifted that child might be, his or her learning is going to be impaired by that kind of emotional interference. The first law of thermodynamics tells us that the amount of energy within an ecosystem is constant. It doesn't change. An open system, on the other hand, allows stuff to come in and go out, since most systems are not closed. The laws of energy conservation can be rephrased to say that the change in the internal energy of the system is equal to the difference between the amount of energy coming in minus the amount of energy going out. We can use that for powering things. Now, we're going to have a go, making some of the very simple paper windmills, a sort of things that you can make from the bits and pieces lying around home, and use that to drive very small generator to power electronic devices. Most of these parents think this can benefit their children's language learning, but actually, kids will get confused when their parents use different languages from each other to describe the same object. If one parent sticks to one language, and the other one sticks to another language, their children will not be confused anymore.